I know I've been talking about the migrant crisis a lot on this channel, and here's another migrant crisis video. And right now, we're not gonna talk about Black Chicago or Black New York City. We're gonna go all the way to San Diego, which is a very key point in the migrant crisis because San Diego is right on the border of Tijuana. Now we have migrants coming all the way as far as China into Mexico, trying to cross Tijuana border into San Diego. And you might not believe me, but here's some proof.
Latino migrants crossing the Rio Grande, dividing Mexico from the U.S., is a common sight. But what is less common is Chinese migrants making the same dangerous attempt. This woman says it took her a month to get here. The number of Chinese migrants crossing the U.S.-Mexico border has increased sharply. According to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, nearly 10,000 crossed on foot from October to April, compared with just over 2,000 who crossed in fiscal year 2022. This man goes by only his surname, Jin, for fear of retaliation against his family in China. Back home, he worked construction and struggled financially.
It's really hard to survive in China.
He traveled for 42 days through South America.
So those are Chinese migrants, right? They're trying to get into the U.S. soil. So let's really be specific here. I know I've been roasting Brandon Johnson. I've been roasting Mayor Eric Adams. But the reality is that San Diego and California and the border right there, they have the ability to say no. We're not gonna let you in. And if we want to use some funding and taxpayers' dollars to prevent this crisis, we can really build that bridge stronger at the border and make sure that nobody gets in. But that is not what San Diego is trying to do today. Here's what San Diego wants to do.
The county is getting more than $30 million to help migrants crossing our border. Representative Juan Vargas made the announcement today. ABC 10 News reporter Natalie Chuck spent the afternoon in the South Bay where asylum seekers continue showing up on a daily basis. Natalie.
Dozens of migrants dropped off right here at the Iris Avenue Transit Center on Friday afternoon. I'm Natalie Chuck, and as soon as we pulled up, so did a white busload full of people. Now the federal government is sending millions of more dollars to San Diego County in an effort to help people just like these as soon as they get here to America. A warm embrace between these two migrants. They traveled through Mexico together before making their way into America by crossing San Diego County's border. A similar story to the rest of these people dropped off by Border Patrol. How has it been once you've gotten here? Good? Bad?
Very good. Very good.
Both the county and the Catholic Diocese of San Diego are each getting $19.6 million from the Department of Homeland Security, all of it used to help migrants waiting on the outcome of their immigration proceedings.
Sometimes it's multiple buses back to back, sometimes it's a few sporadic ones.
Catalina Torres volunteers her time helping migrants at the transit center. On Friday, Chairwoman Nora Vargas praised the funding and said the county is working on creating a sustainable migrant transition center. A temporary one shut its doors back in February because of a lack of funding.
As you see, the vote was 4-1. But let's look at the opposition, the guy who wanted to say hell no.
I mean, it's nice to get federal funding. However, this doesn't fix the problem.
County Supervisor Jim Desmond was quick to push back on the plan for these federal funds.
I'd rather see that money have gone towards securing the border and making sure our Border Patrol stops people, or we only allow enough people in is that we can manage.
And this guy makes perfect sense because I'm going to explain how this affects Black America. You see, San Diego is very clever. They don't mind allowing the migrants to come into the United States, but they don't want to keep migrants in San Diego. They know something is for sure. San Diego is just the entry point. They'll come into San Diego to a certain degree, and they know they're going to go from San Diego to Chicago, to New York City, to Boston. They're not going to be stationary. They're going to move around. And when they come into Chicago, let's use Black Chicago for an example. What happens? What happens to the Black community? Let's check it out.
The thousands of migrants that are being shipped to Democratic-led cities with African-American mayors being piled on to underserved communities is unfair both to the communities, but also unfair to the humanity that is forced into these neighborhoods, dropped off at police stations, dropped off in the middle of underserved neighborhoods.
And if you don't believe me, in just Chicago, what happens in Black Harlem?
Right across the street from Canaan Baptist Church, Senior Pastor Thomas Johnson shares his take.
I got to tell you, the wave came in like a tsunami. It didn't trickle in. One day, I pulled up into my parking space, and there it was. There they were, hundreds.
The pastor says many are uncomfortable with the new faces.
I don't go to 116. I used to go to 116. I avoid that area at all costs.
Like Anita Elam, who has lived in Harlem for decades.
It's overwhelming. It's scary, but it is what it is.
Why are you scared?
I don't know them. It's just a lot of them. They're just all over the place.
Now again, these mayors, Brandon Johnson and Eric Adams, to be fair to them, they're not working at the border, right? So they can't tell the federal government to stop letting these migrants in. So they have very little power. But at the same time, when they come into these cities, they don't mind taking over the Black community. Black Chicagoans are pissed. These migrants that California let in are going to end up replacing them. But why? If you looked at all of the people who voted yes, I can guarantee you on that city council in San Diego, most if not all of those parents were migrants or immigrants to the United States. The only person that said no was the white guy. And that's what you're seeing. They have sympathy for migrants because it represents some of them, their own story. But they don't have sympathy for their African American counterparts who live in the same country as them. You see, in Chicago, it's a very big Black dominated city. And when the migrants come into the South Side or they come into certain parts of the West Side, you're not looking at the fact that you're displacing African Americans. You're not looking at the fact that now Chicago is spending upwards of $300 million in the city budget, in which they could have reinvested into the city's infrastructure or into the African American communities, but they can't do that now because they're trying to go head on and take care of the migrants. Or let's look at New York City, who's giving out a lot of money to migrants, and they need a lot of infrastructure redeveloping because maintenance is the hardest part of any community. But we're also not talking about the migrants in New York City and what some of them are doing in this sector.
A reader reached out to me. They said several spots along Roosevelt Avenue were turning into what they described as the Wild Wild West, a illegal open-air bazaar where you could find anything from hookers to stolen Makita drills. Like anything you can think of, you could get as long as you had the cash. It was all out in the open and nobody seemed to care. These individuals were stealing from stores right here, right where they're selling. They're stealing from these stores, taking the items outside and then selling them right in front of the stores they just stole them.
That's right. You got those same migrants who are coming in without any checks or balances, committing crimes. But knowing goddamn well if that was somebody Black, y'all ready to send them damn near to the hell under. All right? The reality is that California needs to do something that it has never done before or in a long time. It probably needs to turn red, right? California needs to probably become a Republican state. Not that I'm trying to tell anybody what to do or how to vote, but that's probably the only way it's going to stop this. And again, I'm not saying that Eric Adams and that Brandon Johnson are not at fault in their own respectable political administrations. But what I am saying is there are people that want to give money to these guys who are going to come in sometimes and not contribute or cause problems. And that's something that we really need to realize, guys, that this is going to be a difficult part of the year. We have the presidential election, But a lot more cities are going to be affected by this crisis, and nobody will pay the price like African American voters. I can guarantee you, because these people are coming directly straight into their neighborhood. They're even rebuilding old houses and old project buildings just to house these guys. So guys, what do you think? It's your boy, Shady Jackson, back at it again with another episode of Fair Use. I'm out.